Right, very beautiful community. So there's a piece in Politico we should discuss, which implies that Trump may be feeling the waters for his chances of doing a little bit of Putinist regime change in Ukraine. You know, we're in a world of frenemies where allies can be allies today and enemies tomorrow, or allies today in one respect and enemies in another. And that's where Ukraine's relationship with the United States is going. So the story to which we will react and analyze a little bit is four senior members of Donald Trump's entourage have held secret discussions with some of Ukraine's top political opponents to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, just as Washington aligns with Moscow in seeking to lever the Ukrainian president out of a job. So let's read a few lines and then react. I mean, to ground us politically, if Kamala Harris is in power, there's absolutely nothing wrong with her team having talks with political opponents in a country that is an ally country that is at war. This is normatively impeccable. What she can't do is go behind the back of a democratic government and try to conspire against it. So let's see what we've got in the piece. Senior Trump allies held talks with Ukrainian opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko, a remorselessly ambitious former prime minister, and senior members of the party of Petro Poroshenko, Zelenskyy's immediate predecessor as president, according to 3 Ukrainian parliamentarians and a US Republican foreign policy expert. The discussions centered on whether Ukraine could hold quick presidential elections. The Trump aides are confident that Zelenskyy would lose any vote due to war fatigue and public frustration over rampant corruption. Zelenskyy's poll ratings have been in decline, but they have recently picked up, especially after the kerfuffle in the Oval Office. The most recent poll shows Zelenskyy still comfortably ahead in the race for the presidency. Official line from the US administration is that Trump is not interfering in Ukraine's domestic politics. But while the Trump camp may hope an election will sink Zelenskyy, he is massively popular, and massively more popular than Tymoshenko and Poroshenko. Now, well, let's read on a bit and analyze in a moment. His nearest rival, trailing him by more than 20 percentage points in some polls, presumably, is Valery Zaluzhny, former army commander who is now Ukraine's ambassador to Britain. Only 10% backed Poroshenko, and who is known as the Chocolate King due to his confectionery empire. And Tymoshenko garnered just 5.7% support. The key to all the plans under discussion via back channels is to hold presidential elections after a temporary ceasefire is agreed, but full-scale peace negotiations, before full-scale peace negotiations get underway in earnest. Both Tymoshenko and Poroshenko have publicly opposed holding elections before the fighting ends. Several party and factional leaders have made statements this week saying the priority for Ukraine must be to repair relations with Trump, including Ruslan Stefanchuk, chairman of Ukraine's Rada and a member of Zelenskyy's ruling party. So let's react to this a little bit analytically. Now, I am not getting that much from this, to be honest. But I do think that what we're getting is the Trump people are trying to forge and cement alternatives who could do their bidding. Now, basically, Poroshenko and Tymoshenko are not going to win a presidential election. So it's not clear how far the Trump people actually understand Ukraine's domestic politics. You can just imagine, Donny saying, "Well, what about the chocolate guy? Can we get the chocolate guy?" No, Donald, he actually can't win. "Well, you're a nasty guy. I like chocolate." So, it's not clear what they think they're doing, but this sort of ranges from just contact, where these people don't really say anything much to the Trump people, or something more significant, right? And we don't really have much to go on from this piece about whether to place this. But there is no doubt that at the level of intent, this is the Trump team trying to feel out possibilities for ousting Zelensky. And this is a problem because it's certainly going to make NATO allies feel, well, imagine we were at war and we had a sort of democratically elected government then followed by martial law. And then the United States tried to interfere in our politics and undermine our democratically elected government, and moreover do it in a way that aligns with the enterprise of Mr. Putin. So the paradox here is this is the Trump team feeling out if they can do what Putin wants to do but has failed to do. Now, there was a mention of Mr. Zelenskyy there, who these people clearly didn't speak to. And what's remarkable about Zelenskyy is that he has recently come out and made a statement which will be problematic for Zelenskyy. But until that point, Zelenskyy was incredibly silent. There wasn't even the semblance of suggestion about Zelenskyy making any kind of moves. It was just complete silence. And Zelenskyy said Washington is taking more and more steps toward the Kremlin regime at a time when Russia and the axis of evil are attempting to dismantle the global order. And I presume Zelenskyy saying that is not coordinated with Zelensky's presidential office. So, not good. This is sort of exploration of Putin's regime change in Ukraine. Now, Trump's position, as I see it for now, is that he wants Zelenskyy out, but he isn't committed to getting him out. Putin's position is that he is committed to getting Zelenskyy out, but he knows that if he begins pushing that line, the benefit for Putin might be that he convinces Trump of it, that Trump begins pushing it more strongly. But the downside is that the more public pronouncements Putin makes around ousting Zelenskyy, the more popular Zelenskyy is going to be at home. So there's a sort of a self-refuting element for Putin if he wants to push this line in any kind of public way. Now, procedurally, there are two ways to get Zelenskyy out. You can have an election, but there is also a way to get Zelenskyy out without an election. And you heard Mr. Stefanchuk mention then, constitutionally, if Zelenskyy stepped down, there is no indication Zelenskyy wants to do that. He suggested he'd step down for a membership of NATO, but he knows that's not a realistic option. So Zelenskyy has put down the structure of the conversation, at least. Are there some conditions that I would, under which I'd agree to step down if Ukraine got certain things? That was guaranteed. But so far, the only condition Zelenskyy put is just a condition that's not part of any serious conversation. But if Zelenskyy just stepped down constitutionally, Stefanchuk takes over, and there doesn't need to be an election, there can be an interregnum period. So this piece says that the Trump people want an election, but at least theoretically there are these two possibilities. There is a theoretical way of Zelensky stepping down without an election too. Now, I think that's as far as we go with the main takeaways. Whoever were to take over from Zelensky would face an inordinately difficult situation. The preponderance of Western experts publicly and privately are worried about elections as a great destabilizing force in Ukraine, with people sort of, opening up discourse and accusations of betrayal flying around. Because we mustn't forget that Putin does not really want full territorial acquisition of Ukraine, but he wants political control over Ukraine. Putin's aim in Ukraine is ungovernability, and also, in the shorter term, getting Zelensky out, partly for strategic reasons, but partly just for reasons of personal vendetta. Putin simply thinks Zelensky is a traitor and doesn't want to deal with him, even if the next person is going to be worse for Putin to deal with. So Putin has that level of personal animosity there. But yes, this is an ally of Ukraine, its main sponsor, exploring changing Ukraine's democratic government, what Putin wanted to do but couldn't do. How far it went, I can't say. This is limited for me, what this piece gives, and maybe it didn't really go anywhere. And it's worth saying that the people involved there are not people with a big political future in Ukrainian politics. I don't know if the Trump team understand that. So that's my take for now. But what the big picture here is, this is really a world of world of frenemies, and a world where many times you feel, well, if that's the kind of ally I have, what do my enemies look like? Lots of love.